Thanks for coming tonight. My name is Lisa DeGrace, and I am the Development Director for Sitka Center for Art and Ecology. And it's my pleasure to welcome everyone to this spring resident talk. Our community is joining in from all over the world, and Sitka's roots are here on the North Central Oregon coast. And so we want to acknowledge and thank the first people and stewards of this place who today are actively represented by the Confederated Tribe of the Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians. I'm a fundraiser, and people sometimes wonder how I can ask people for money. They think it must be scary or hard, but for me, it's much scarier to think about a world without people like the residents we're going to hear from tonight. And they are why I do my work. Every time we have a resident talk, I become newly inspired and newly excited about Sitka, and I find hope for the world. And that just feels so important today and every day. So that's why my work really brings me joy. And it turns out I'm not the only one who feels that. There are so many of you who joined together to make Sitka's programs possible. So we want to thank Jordan Schnitzer for his extraordinary sponsorship of Sitka Center, including the Jordan Schnitzer printmaking residency. And we want to thank all of our generous sponsors and foundations who make our work possible, including McMenamins, Schwabe Williamson and Wyatt, Scott Ceramics, Brian Potter Design, Park Lane Suites, Sefert Winery, Ford Family Foundation, the Robert and Mercedes Eichholz Foundation, Braemar Trust, the Kinsman Foundation, Oregon Community Foundation, Oregon Arts Commission, Oregon Cultural Trust, and the Roundhouse Foundation. It truly takes a village. We want to thank Sitka's co-founders, Jane and Frank Boyden, and all 151 of Sitka's past and present board members, along with countless volunteers, neighbors, members, and financial supporters. Special thanks to all who just renewed their memberships with Sitka or who joined for their first time. We can't wait to host you on campus for workshops this summer, and it's not too late to join in. Our workshop season is online now and open for registration. Tonight, if you have questions or comments, please share them and we'll do our best to respond through the Q&A or through the chat. So you just put a little note in the chat and we'll track those. And now it's my pleasure to hand it over to our program manager, Tamara Jennings, to introduce the first of our presenting residents tonight. So thanks, Tamara.
Hello, my name is Tamara Jennings, and I'm the program manager here at Sitka. It's my pleasure to introduce the first of 5 residents who will share their work with us tonight. Kane Casket is a recording artist from New Jersey with a background in poetry and fine art. A dedicated and meticulous creative, Kane produces his music, illustrates and animates his visuals, and directs his music videos. Kane effortlessly blends melodic crooning with abstract lyricism. His poetic observations are perceptive and pensive, expressed through melancholy verses and hooks that feel familiar yet unique. Please join me in welcoming Kane to speak tonight.
Thank you, Tamara. I appreciate you. Hi, everyone. My name is Kane. I feel like I really got an introduction, but you know, it's always an interesting thing going first. So please give me grace. I'm putting my glasses on. Well, yeah, I'm an artist, a fine artist, a musician, a multimedia creative. I'm from Jersey originally, kind of lived in a couple of different places. A lot of my work are like psychological observations of, you know, moment-to-moment interactions that I've had in my life, but they're also like opposite observations of my mind and other psyches. Like I make a lot of my music to like center myself in other people and to finding a route towards healing or kind of recollecting ideas or thoughts. And that's where a lot of my music stems from. And it's also rooted in my culture. I'm West African, so like I pull from like like world music. I pull from like kind of like abstract ambient, like synthwave music as well. So it's like a semblance of many things, and it's kind of my own collection of these worlds, and I'm enmeshing them and kind of creating my own canvas with them. And my last few projects have been a couple of examples of that work. In 2018, I released like my first technical EP. I had some previous work, but like nothing concrete. That project was called 9 Nights, and it was more so like an induction of my culture. Like I grew up in primarily West African household, and throughout my life, I kind of was afraid of my heritage and my culture. Afraid because I felt I was as a younger boy, I was judged. You know, at a certain point in time, like before Black Panther and before like this okay nuance movement of like blackness becoming like super saturated, or Africanness becoming super saturated in mainstream media. I was I was made fun of, so like I kind of felt displaced from my heritage. So I made that record to kind of like account for my relationship with my father, my relationship with West Africa, like primarily Liberia, like Ghana and Nigeria, and my relationship with death. Um, Something I was dealing with, personal woes that I was dealing with. So that project kind of like documented that. And it was kind of the first step for me creatively to kind of figure out the worlds that I wanted to build. So it kind of, and since releasing that project, it kind of transitioned a lot for me. Like I started working on new music, started developing more shows, and then the pandemic happened. So kind of like threw me for a curveball. I was working on a new project, um, and I kind of just didn't feel motivated. I felt displaced. I didn't really have a goal in mind anymore. I felt like maybe a lot of artists felt at that time. So I started working on a new project, kind of like coincidentally. It was more of an observation of like the things that were happening around me. I have a slideshow that, if I'm okay to share, I can kind of go into a little bit more detail about how I came to that and like the ideas that fostered that also brought me here. Earth 2 is the active project that I'm working on right now. Um, I have a couple words about it and like narratives. Earth 2 is a collection of audio recordings narrated from the perspective of a nomadic figure. I conceived the earliest concepts for this during my last effort that I just brought up, which is called The Nature of War. The Nature of War pretty much focuses on like psyops, psychological warfare, the relationship between mass media and governing forces. Other topics like sensory gating of Black death, surveillance, the adverse effects of algorithmic data and social media are some like other things that I tiptoe in that project. The pandemic really challenged me to like look at the outliers in our systems and re-inform myself about the things that I already knew, but also kind of expand upon topics that I had before and delve into more in a way that it was ingestible or digestible. Um, if you get a chance to listen to that project, The Nature of War, I would appreciate it. It's kind of a personal work, but it has some good tunes on it. Has some records. It has some records on that. My next project has been cultivated from that narrative. Uh, so as I mentioned before, this new project is about this nomadic figure, and my initial intent was to kind of document the shift of his psyche, um, and show like what this character would be experiencing in a renewed environment or renewed earth. Um, that with a sole mission, this whole purpose behind this character was to gather from this new earth. He like was sent into a distant future to gather resources in abundance, to bring it back to like almost a decaying timeline. And I was thinking about the space that we were in during the pandemic. It was definitely a spawn of the pandemic, but I was thinking about how we were currently and have been living in a dystopia and led to a dystopia. And I wanted to like remark that in a way where it was something that was tangible for people to understand, but also like comprehend. It didn't feel too foreign to them. And I think Earth 2 is kind of acknowledging the adverse effects of the dystopia, but also considering what possibilities could be garnished from an alternative route or reality. And I say that's when Earth 2 started to expand, like my ideas started to like look beyond just like the psyche and this character's mental space, or like who he was and who he was going to become, to where was he like socially, where was he ecologically, where was he mentally, like all these things started to like collide. And yeah, so I started to work on this project, and the first concepts that came together were a couple of songs. One of the first ones was a song called Ivory, which is pretty much a diary or a document of like my relationship with myself, or my childlike version, my ego, and kind of the concept of nurturing the ego, and and how it's fostered in conjunction to nurturing the environment and developing a plant from its infancy to a mature state. So that record kind of like developed and evolved into that. And then it kind of spiraled from there. Started working on another record called God Phone, which was like my relationship with the universe, my relationship with fauna, my relationship with flora, my relationship with plant life, my relationship with the perceived God, like having a direct line to my creator was kind of the concept behind that. And then it spiraled into another record called New Life. And from there, it started to facilitate some of the conversations that I wanted to have about ecology and primarily marine life, like how that started to slide into it was I wanted to create a project that documented sounds in different environments, and would use sounds from like the the oscillating sounds of a cannonball jellyfish and like subtropic or sub levels of sub depths, so that like for fostered homeostasis, which is like a song about conditioning, of returning into like an equilibrium and balance. And all of these songs were kind of like research that I had been taking on about different animals, about different methods of living, about different plant life, about different fauna, and sampling all these things and kind of creating this collage of sound within the narrative that I had already developed. And then I started to expand on it, but in a way that still represented a story that was true to me. So that's pretty much what Earth 2 is about, if that makes any sense. These are some of like the earliest stages of like my mental mood boarding, and I was just putting images together, like referencing concepts, seeing like what made sense. Um, and through that process, I actually stumbled on the work of Floyd uh, Floyd Wright, and his architecture is like pretty much all about earth governance and organic architecture, like working with homes and environments. And that kind of led me to the work of Javier Santistra, who is a Mexican architect and organic architect that actually owns and has constructed multiple spaces around Mexico and in different other areas he's been expanding. But his work is pretty much, it enmeshes the sublime and the kind of like fantastical, and it mainly acknowledges like shapes that are formed and carved and found in our modern ecology, or just like ecology in general. And his whole goal was to create an ecological preservation, um, for eco regeneration through means of a park and homes. And one of the amazing things that happened throughout this project, as I was developing, I found his work and I reached out to him. I got it. I emailed him like many months ago, and he reached out like maybe in November, October, and we began talking from there just about the project. And we started talking about Earth governance. Started talking about like the mitoleal system, which is like I can go in for days on that. But we had so many conversations, and he really allowed me the opportunity to um, work in his space, and like that was the outcome of that. Those conversations that led to the next stage, which was the first video for New Life. So New Life is pretty much act one. So this is like insider. This is like an overview of my next project. No one has seen any of this yet. New Life is about my relationship with my ego, my younger self, and to get without ruining the concept because it's coming out soon. It's about me basically giving life or bearing life, and it's through abstract means. It's like life through plants, if that makes any sense. Or that Stevie Wonder album that really obscure one that no one listened to that I love, but it's like it's kind of a mesh of that. And I have basically a preview. I'm still editing this video with my close friend, so this is like a preview. While we shot it out in Mexico City, while out there, I was like listening, looking at a lot of Mexican cinema, and one of the pieces that I came across again because I've seen it in the past was Roma, and it really inspired the introduction for the piece. So this is just the intro. This is not like when I transition, but. Oh yeah, that's as far as I got. I'm sorry. But yeah, that is an intro into New Life and what that visual might be kind of like documenting and bringing to life. But before that, I shot another video for another piece, which is all about the relationship. This is a full narrative, so it's my relationship with the boy post him being birthed. And that's for the first record on the project that I made, Ivory. It's more of a sentimental piece. Still working on this visual cut. Um, both of these videos I directed, and they're both kind of like about similar topics, but in different ways. Yeah, I can also play another quick example of that if you guys want to see it. Reason my love. That's where I'm at right there. I just wanted to say a quick tidbit. That record is about my relationship with the child, myself, my own ego, but also my relationship with Earth. These are some of the odd ins and outs of my at-sea experience, which was all cultivated from the Sitka Center and allowed by the Sitka Center experience. And that experience was tremendous for me because I was able to record and sample a variety of sounds from so many different spaces around the ship. Also, like there was a hydrophone. It's essentially just like a microphone that's put into the depths of the sea, and it captures different variant sounds and octaves and wavelengths of oceanic life. And I heard dolphins, like whales. It was like so much, and I recorded it all, and I'm going to be sampling it and re-adding it back into the project. So being on the ship was amazing just because I was able to like sample so many different sounds. I also have been integrating some AR and 3D rendering into some of the project, um, kind of mixing certain media. So like while I was out there, I like had rendered an albatross, and I also was like rendering different property rooms inside of the ship. So this is like one of the quick renders that I had scanned, but I have far more detailed ones. But I'm essentially building a full map of the ship as a piece of the display portal for my kind of like recap of my residency experience. So it's going to be kind of like a mix of sound immersion and visual immersion. So that's like, this is kind of like a sneak peek into my head. You open the veil. These are just like concepts, ideas, just sharing. Um, yeah, that's pretty much Earth 2's brief concept and underbelly about the project in relationship to the project.
Thank you, Kane, so much for sharing about your time on the boat and about your music. We're so pleased to have you with us. The next artist that I'd like to introduce is Tara Homasi. Tara Homasi is an Iranian interdisciplinary artist based in New York. For the past few years, she has been investigating the mainstream media and the internet, questioning the accuracy and authenticity of the sources we take for granted and their power for mind control. In her art practice, she endeavors to depict our digital existence, which is under attack by algorithms, cyber marginalization, misinformation, censorship, etc., with artistic tools. Please join me in welcoming Tara.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much. I don't have much to say besides what you just described. I'll go directly to the. So as you said, my main focus is on mainstream media. I started this, my art projects on newspapers at first, and I was trying to impose my own reality because I wasn't a fan of what was going on around me. And it was self-defense mechanism. Basically, I wanted to to be able to handle the world around me. And these works were kind of relevant to the events that was going on at the time of making them. And at the end, when the works were done, I would put them back in the newsstands and distribute it all around New York and other states and my own country also. And this is an example of how I did the transformation. And then I started to work on the books and as platforms that also frame our reality and our perception of the world. This is a book called The Circle of Life. It's about the different rituals of different communities around the world. As you can see, I mean, the image is extremely transformed. Also, as you can see, the original text is here, and I highlighted the words that I tried to somehow combine to create a poetry. These are some more examples. And this book was published a few years ago.
Yep.
So I just quickly
Got
go
it.
to the newspaper. I talked about it. So these are the newspaper transformed pictures. Really quickly. This is an example of how it was transformed. And this is the book that I was talking about. This is the highlighted text. You can see the original text around there. This is another. These are the poems that I kind of left, and I scratched out all the other words in the book, and the images, like I said, are also transformed. And for the next project, I started to work on a book. It's a very famous, well-known book in Iran, big resource for Iranians to know all the photographers, famous photographers around the world. Like, basically, this is how we get to know artists, and our aesthetic was basically very influenced by these books from Western books and art. I still have trouble to break away from this Western definition of art and aesthetic. So this is again an attempt to find my words, my images from another book that defines the word, especially in the art world. And in this book, which will be around 500 pages, I specifically focus on Noah's Ark story. All the poems are about Noah's Ark, all the images are, I try to be related to that. And then I started to work on the social media platforms, and I considered myself, I considered Google Maps as the biggest collectively written book basically in the world. So again, I decided to manipulate that, and I started to write my diary in different places and on the review section, and collected some images, transformed them, as you can see, and upload them back on the platform. And a lot of them got reported and eliminated, of course, because we do the self-policing thing. Like, reviewers and users are somehow very religious about facts, and whatever that is irrelevant, they report it. And this is an image from Google Street View. Again, I changed it and uploaded. There are also some personal pictures that I put in different locations that I actually been there and experienced something and try to reimagine it and add something that is missing. This series, I have a series of these images that I, in different galleries, especially in Iran, which was really hard to actually get into them and exhibit my work. So I digitally manipulated the pictures uploaded by the users and put my work there, like that cube is my work. And all the images also you see around were deleted, and you know, I cheated. And it's still, I mean, some people believe that that's an actual exhibition, so they're not deleted, because people are used to forms like this, artistic forms like this. It's not weird to see that. And after that, I'm doing a project on F-Train specifically because I realized how people depict a place with their cameras in a very different way. And you can see when you go from one station to another, how the demographic of that place changes. And F-Train is one of the longest subway trains in New York. And it's a journey, it's a demographic journey, basically. You can see how things change, like how the posture of the people, how their clothes changes as we moved around it. At each station on the review section, I collected 3 pictures and I transformed them and again upload them back. This is 14th Street, very hipster kind of station. There's a lot going on there. And I also uploaded some videos of myself, like that's me in the green cube. And after that, I wanted to see, those were the inputs that users put up, uploaded on social media, I mean, on Google Maps. And I wanted to see how Google Street View represents the world. And I realized that it's very different. Like a lot of areas, usually wealthy countries, have a perfect, very nuanced coverage of every street, basically. Like this is Europe, with the exception of Germany, because they want it to be very private. They basically don't allow Google Maps Street View record everything because of some history that I don't have time to talk about it. This is Middle East. The US have very bad relationship with this place. This is my country. It always stands out. So yeah, in Middle East, you can see Israel. It's one of those countries you can see the blue. Those blue colors are a street view coverage of the world. So wherever you see those blues, that means that the car, a street view card with the camera, has been there and archived that recorded everything. So again, if we go closer to Israel, we can see the car has been go through it, but in Gaza, we don't see anything, only the fractions of individuals who uploaded some pictures. Just wanted to show the difference between, in a very close neighborhood. This is one picture by a user uploaded in Gaza in comparison to on the other side of the wall, like a few miles away. You saw the camera quality in comparison with, everything else. This is eSport in the US and Maine. This is the street view image of this place. It's a very famous place. The last time that Google Street View went through eSport was 2007, which is ridiculous. And the quality is very poor. This is a picture that someone took and uploaded there, but Street View is still like that. And they haven't gone through it. I don't know why. I collected all the words and all the words of the reviews on Google Maps and highlighted some of the words to create a poem, again, words and alphabets, in addition to the images that I found interesting. And I created a digital book out of it. And you can see some of them. And you can see how little the body of reviews are. Like this one has only 32 in comparison with a place like New York, like with dozens of reviews. And at another residency, I wanted to visualize, not in a digital way, but a physical, like writing on a paper, the density and concentration of the reviews, amount of reviews and inputs that people upload. These are almost 2,000 reviews of restaurants in Rockland in Maine. And I wrote them down, very bad handwriting and very slow. It took me days. And again, I highlighted a lot of words to try to create a poem. These are, those were for the restaurants. You can see how much of input people, how much people talk about restaurants. And these are for the galleries and the museums. And this is for the hospital. As you can see, I again highlighted words and alphabets to create a Wright poem, if you can call that. This is Sitka. And this is Portland. And you can see again the coverage that Street View has. And well, the Google Street View just passed from here, and this is very isolated and remote from it, kind of immune from that scrutiny. I mean, I'm not sure if it's good or bad. I'm not gonna talk about that, but these are all individuals that shared their private view of the place around here. And I want to share with you this very amazing picture that someone uploaded. I'm very excited about exploring all the images and words. This is very surreal, an art piece. And yes, I can't wait to start my project. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Tara. We really are looking forward to having you here next week. And thank you for sharing all those interesting observations about culture and yeah, so such evocative, Allison says, such evocative images and installations, including the imaginative manipulation and repurposing of global mapping for journaling, public plus private. Welcome to Sitka. Our next artist is Sung Un Park. She is an artist working across the medium of drawing, sculpture, and painting. In her current body of work, Park explores the conflicts between humanity's desperate hopes and reality. Such conflicts occur between desire and forbiddance, desire and the ideal, consciousness and unconsciousness, and the instinct and rationality in our human nature. Park currently lives and works in Oregon. Please join me in welcoming Sung to Sitka.
Thank you, Tamara, for the introduction. First, I'm so grateful to have such wonderful opportunity of presenting my recent body of work that I've been working on for the past 6 years. So I will share some of my work from ongoing series. The work have been the investigations into a good death, the reflection on our mortality, the intensity of this inevitable shadow that forces us to accept the prospect of death. So it's an acceptance that impacts the way we lead our lives. So my work is comprised of creation and collected materials, and it all involves creating narratives in a theatrical setting in order to communicate with the audience. So here's my first piece. It's called Pause. It asks the audience the question of how natural acceptance of death changes the perception of our lives. There is a barbershop poll, which was chosen to bring back the nostalgia and memories of our first haircut. It gives the viewers a moment of pause in between the two sides. One is desire to have a full life, and the other side is the realization of the reality of the end. So I try to create a power struggle between them. The tension and the energy of confrontation between them through these two gestural forms. So the pattern of growing your hair and cutting it off is like the pattern of one's life cycle. So here is a detailed image. As you can see in this one, there is a sink drain in the center. So that describes the simplification of life's pattern by not only learning what we can keep or hold, but by also realizing what we might lose and how we let go of things during our life journey. So if this one is about pattern of life cycle, this one is more about the accomplishment. So this one shows the dialogue between the two identical figures. They are slowly drowning in the bathtub while weaving the piece together. So my questions are, what do we achieve or accomplish during our lives? So these are all found objects, like these sewing machines are the found object from my own collection that I've been collecting for years. So I often start with the object and then think about an image, or sometimes it's the opposite. I think about the entire image and then select the object and then search them. And then this one is called The Time is Near. So once we realize that we are near to the end of our journey, we prepare to cross the bridge, and bridge that leads us to eternal sleep. A drawer and bed was metaphorically revealed to conduct the cremation ceremony. So this capture scene is more meditative than the actual ritual. So here is the detail. So with an old shoe, I try to add my own twist, memory, trauma, and anxiety of the death, sorry. And then this is one of the 3 pieces that I started on the theme of happy funeral, which was inspired by the film called The Dreams that came out in 1990. It's the collection of short films, which was directed by Akira Kurosawa. I don't know if you have heard, if you've known about this director. So he's one of well-known Japanese film directors. So in this film, there are 6 different segments. In one of them, there was a scene of this peaceful funeral of a person who lived a full life. And it was what greatly stimulated my interest to explore this idea. So this is the installation image. So this piece shows the day of the funeral comes. The inevitable shadow has been following the newborn, and both of them go towards the end together. So these train tracks, cutting boards, cradle/coffin, and sewing machines are occupied metaphorically. Train tracks would be perceived visually as seams or stitches with the sets of sewing machines, and they offer their sound to the viewers with an imagination. And this is the last piece of a series, The Happy Funeral. Again, the cradle/coffin is lifted up, which elaborates the dignity of both life and death. And for this piece, particularly, I added my own religious belief, which is revealed through the visual representation. So I added the red rope, and it officially indicates the acceptance of the sacrifice of Jesus. And then I've been thinking a lot about my own method of creation lately. For the past 2 years, the scale of my work has changed. There are more objects and elements that I added in the narrative. So I wanted to make my work more theatrical, which creates surrealistic environment that drives the audience to stay immersed in the present. So this is kind of a transitional piece for me personally. This is called The Landscape. So I started to think about, what's next after death or funeral. So what will happen to our body after we die? Where does it go? So this scene is comprised of 3 segments shown in one expanded landscape. The story of a precious boy's disappearing because of a sudden appearance of a crocodile. I don't know if you can see in the right one. And the Tibetan funeral culture of giving away a corpse to vultures, and the Korean national faith represented through a deer, one of the object of longevity and the worship of nature. So in this narrative scene, with an absence of figures, humans reveal their existence by returning their bodies to nature. So I was hoping that this work would give the audience an opportunity to rethink about postmortem. And then this one is called Someone and No One. The same question for the audience about funeral culture in postmortem, while many of us start considering the green burial these days. So I thought it was necessary to think about a time and space where people can grieve genuinely beyond the common procedure, rather than circus-like performance to remember people after death. So these are some details. And then this one is about a moment between life and death. So when geese cross the road, we have to pause for a moment in our driving. So when I stopped, I was thinking, so these questions were brought up. Do we leave only this limited time, a brief moment, pause while we are dead? Or is this pause moment a time for us to bring our memories within living a full life before we die? So these were the questions that I also want the viewers to think about. And then this is my last one. It's called Still Life. So the inspiration of this piece came from one of Vincent van Gogh's piece, which is filled with crows. Following a persistent myth, it's often claimed that that was his last work. The menacing sky, the crows and dead, and path are said to refer to the end of his life approaching. So this scene I capture is actually based on the true story of the woman who took her own life. She was found by a professional who is significantly trained, licensed, and qualified to clean the space after death. Considering the object in the pink tent, it was only assumed that she lived in a tent, which was in her apartment. But the cause of her death was not revealed. The specialist reported the condition as sadness and extreme loneliness, but as opposed to those who had struggled to live. So she was no one, but became the one who has been remembered and recognized by many anonymous people through the story released in this time, released in this piece. So that was my last one. So I started to insert new technologies into my work lately. I want to create an image by incorporating them, like such as moving images or mechanical object. So try to learn or have the new skills that I can use in my own work. So that's my plan. But I'm always open to collaborate with other artists or even engineers so that I can have more ways, like various methods of creation. So yes, thank you. That was my last one.
Thank you, Sun. Jean shares, Sung, your astounding symbolism surrounding our mortality is so well portrayed in your installations. That collection must be large. And
Yes.
Allison shares, somehow Sung Un Park managed to ask a lifetime's worth of questions about life, death, and rebirth within the span of 10 minutes. Thank you for taking us behind the scenes of these theatrical installations and inside your art. Welcome to Sitka.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure having you here at Sitka, Sung.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Our next artist, Michelle Ruiz Kyle, is a writer, public speaker, and tarot reader with an eye for the enchanted and a way with animals. She is the author of the critically acclaimed novels, YA novels, Summer in the City of Roses and All of Us with Wings. Her short fiction can be found in Cosmonauts Avenue, the Buckman Journal, and the anthologies Color Outside the Lines and Dispatches from Anaris, Tales in Tributes to Ursula K. Le Guin. She is a contributor to both volumes of the Tarot Manual, a collection of specialized spreads. She is a 2020 Literary Lions honoree, a recipient of a 2020 Hedgebrook residency, and a 2021 Tin House Scholar. Her most recent public talk was the July Creative Mornings gathering on the topic of matriarchy. Born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, Michelle has called Portland, Oregon home for many years. She curates the fairy tale reading series, All Kinds of Fur, and lives with her family in a cottage where the forest meets the city. Please help me welcome Michelle.
Thank you so much, Tamara. I'm really excited to talk a little bit about my work and to just share some time with you all. Let me see, I'm having a problem minimizing, exit full screen. Okay, now I can get to where I need to be. I'm just amazed and really blown away by all of the visual art that I've seen. And I'm really inspired by visual art and music in my work as a writer. So I want to thank everyone else who's gone before me because I have a million ideas going through my head. And I'm working on something new. So my brain is very sticky right now, very open to new things. So I'm really fascinated to learn more about everyone's work and check out your websites. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about my latest book. I actually had intended to read something new, but then I realized that my experience at Sitka was a strange occurrence of life actually imitating art. So I didn't realize this, but a few weeks before my residency, I was telling my friend how I was really nervous about going away for an entire month. I felt worried about one of my young adult kids, and my friend just started laughing and saying, like, Michelle, your book. And I was like, yeah, okay. You know, I'm going there to write my new book. Yes. Like, what are you saying to me? And she's like, no, your last book. And I realized, like, yes, right. Of course, you know, I finally got what she was saying. So I'll read you the official flap copy and I think you'll see what she meant. Inspired by Greek myths about siblings Iphigenia and Orestes and the grim fairy tale Brother and Sister, Michelle Ruiz Kyle's second novel follows two siblings torn apart and struggling to find each other in early 90s Portland. All her life, 17-year-old If has protected her sensitive younger brother Or. But this summer, with their mother gone at an artist residency, their father decides it's time for 15-year-old Or to toughen up at a wilderness boot camp. Furious at her father's betrayal, If storms off and gets lost in the maze of Old Town. Enter George, a queer Robin Hood who swoops in on a bicycle, bow and arrow at the ready, offering If a place to hide out while she tracks down her brother. Or, in the meantime, has escaped the camp and fallen in with the Furies, an all-girl punk band, and moves into the coat closet of their ramshackle pink house. In their first summer apart, If and Or find themselves as they work to find each other before a fantastical transformation fractures their family forever. So after my friend pointed out the obvious that the inciting incident of my most recent book, Summer in the City of Roses, was the mom leaving for an artist residency, I realized that I'd written this whole book from, you know, the kids' point of view, And now I was really living out the mother story myself. And the book was definitely inspired by my experience with my family. My first novel was sort of owed a lot to my own coming of age. Not, kind of being on my own as a young teen in San Francisco, but my own family with my daughters and my partner has been extremely, extremely close knit. And I started thinking about all of the challenges involved in coming of age, coming out of a very intensely close family, where some of that closeness is a result of generational trauma and a desire to protect each other sort of from this world that's perceived as dangerous or scary. And I also realized the minute I got to Sitka that the last time I had spent that much time alone was probably in my early 20s, which are, far, far in the rearview mirror for me. So it had been many years since I had really had the time to sit with myself. And I thought I would read you a scene that I never get to read in readings because it's a little part where the mother story sort of sneaks in. And so I want to thank you for making space for it the way that Sitka made space for me this last month. I've just been home less than a week and I'm still processing everything that transformed both inside and in my work while I was there. The one thing I should also tell you is that this scene is a flashback. It is from the perspective of Orestes, or for short. He is in Southeast Portland in the very messy, disgustingly gross house of the all-girl punk band, The Furies, and is thinking about what happened before his mom left for her residency. He's got some guilt about what happened, but because he reacted poorly to her leaving. But before that, he's helping her pack and they're just having a talk. So I'm gonna get my glasses. Ritual creates boundaries, Mom said, holding a red dress against herself in the mirror. Bring it, Laura said. It's one of your best. Boundaries are containers. Mom folded the dress into her suitcase. Like a glass jar, nothing special till you think about what they can contain. All sorts of ambient intangibles. Ambient Intangibles is the name Orr gave an imaginary paranormal investigative agency in a series of stories he was writing last winter. The whole family adopted it as shorthand for the inexplicable or vast, space, time, consciousness, the afterlife. I keep imagining a big invisible spider I'm trying to trap in a mason jar so I can take him outside, Orr said, fiddling with the zipper on Mom's suitcase. Sorry. Mom touched his hair, running a strand of it between her two fingers from his temple to where it ended below his shoulder blade. But maybe it's not a spider, or maybe it's a nice one. Maybe. Mom stopped in front of him with a pair of socks in her hand. Actually, I think the metaphor is good. Like, what if this ambient intangible gets out of control? Invisible spiders running rampant in your bedroom. Then what do? Freak out? Or was kidding, but also serious. Mom laughed. That's right, Miho. You freak the fuck out. And then you have to learn. You need a procedure. I'm asking you to think about what intangibles create chaos in your life and what rituals could you create to contain them? Or understood a little, but not all the way. Bring this, he said, holding up one of Mom's most prized concert tees, thin now and faded from red to pink, from the second ever Bread and Roses Festival. They'd driven all the way to Berkeley for the 3 days of concerts. If says it's her first memory, the sound of Joni Mitchell's voice under the moon. Laura remembers none of it, but loves to hear Mom and Dad tell the story of that trip, camping on the Rogue River on the way down, staying with a friend of Dad's in Berkeley, and an old hotel in the Redwoods on the way home. All of them cozy in the car together. Mom and Dad realizing they could still have adventures even though they had kids. Mom took the shirt, squinted at the pinholes along the hem, rolled it up and tucked it inside a chunky brown ankle boot wedged in the corner of her suitcase. 3 months is a long time, Orr said. That's what I'm trying to tell you, love. Think of it like beads on a necklace. Each chunk of time I'm away is a bead you string on the wire of the day. Be aware of this and you will calm down, because repetition is inherently calming, Orr finishes for her. They both know repetition's power from direct experience, Orr from music and Mom from dancing. They tried an experiment once. Orr wrote a song and Mom made a dance where nothing repeated. Neither piece worked. Mom's eyes go darker and brighter. When you slow down and make these daily activities conscious, you begin to see the beats differently. They start out plain, boring. It's more about accumulation at that stage, like checking off days on a calendar or doing pliés at the bar. But after a while, the beats get shiny. Like by touching them again and again, you polish them into gems. That's when you know you're getting close. Close to what? El mundo bueno. Life is art. How do you know all this? I learned it the hard way, mi amor, the way I do everything. She was laughing, but there was also sadness. Why? Or was pushing now. I mean, I learned this stuff from you. Didn't your parents teach you? Mom was silent at first, matching pairs of socks, or thought she was, as usual, blowing him off. Then she said, there has to be trust for that, mijo. But I did learn things from my parents. I learned who not to be and what not to do. And that's something, right? She folded her second best jeans in half, then rolled them up, or didn't like to see them tucked away. Mom was quiet again, or saw her trying to decide what to tell him. She did that a lot. With Dad, the stories flowed. They'd heard about his childhood exploits hundreds of times. With Mom, they came out very rarely, like a deer in the yard in winter. She took a breath. I was a little lost when I first had If. Then you came along so soon after. I was overwhelmed for a while. For a while, your dad had to do everything. For a little bit, I even stopped nursing you. He fed you bottles. I stayed in bed. Then one day, he burst in with a kid under each arm and plopped you both down next to me and stalked to the bathroom to take a shower. Or can see Dad doing this. And Mom still gets sad like that sometimes, but usually only for a day or two. Mom patted Or's hand and smiled. You two were staring at me with your big black eyes and your creepy little alien baby heads like, what now? So I brought you down to the kitchen and put you in the playpen. You were standing there with your hands on the bars like little jailbirds in your white onesies and sticky neck hair. I went to make some tea, but the kitchen was disgusting. That's how you know your dad was losing it. I don't know why I thought to do it, but I set the egg timer for 10 minutes and tidied till it dinged. Then I went in the hall bathroom and washed my face. A pair of earrings was there on the shelf. I hadn't worn dangly earrings since I'd had If. The midwife told me I'd have to give them up because babies pull on them. I cannot believe I listened to that. As you know, I might as well be naked without earrings. He knew. Mom went nowhere without jewelry. It was her armor. So I put them on and kept doing that every day after washing my face. Then I'd go downstairs and set the timer for 10 minutes. Then I'd have my tea. Like a little ritual. See where I'm going with this? If one of you interrupted the routine, I started where I left off. That timer was my lifeline, mijo, a little container of time. It wasn't fast, but after a while, I learned to string the beats together like spells. Dishes, garden, dance class, carpool, they all became sacred. Why are you leaving then? You know I'm coming back, right? That's not what I asked. Mom sighed and spoke to her reflection in the mirror, head cocked to one side. I have to work again, my love. You and your sister are growing up. I need to grow too. So that little piece really spoke to my time at Sitka. Having the time to actually slow down and make some routines for myself, that really fed me as an artist. And I'm just very grateful that I got the chance to do that. Oh, and I wanted to show you, I'm going to try to see if I can do the advanced move of sharing my screen. Okay, perfect. Okay, so these are pictures of the covers of my books. All of Us with Wings and Summer in the City of Roses. You can get them anywhere books are sold. And if you're thinking of maybe recommending one of the books to a young person in your life, I would just suggest for All of Us with Wings, the back of the book says 16 and up, and I would really suggest that. There's some intense stuff around trauma and healing and the messiness of all of that. And then Summer in the City of Roses, I think is great for 14 and up. And a lot of my readers are adults. If you're into mythic fiction or magic realism or BIPOC futurisms, all of that stuff and more can sort of be found in the books. So thank you very much. I'm just so glad I got to be at Sitka. I'm home like, I feel like I had both, you know, a difficult transformation and a vacation. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Allison shares, where'd it go? Young adult lit is such fertile ground for exploring the contemporary edges and intersections of humanity's awkward and uncomfortable relationship with nature. Thank you for bringing your magical realist voice to Sitka, Michelle, and thank you for reading for us. Our next artist is Nia Witherspoon. Nia Witherspoon is a Black queer writer, multidisciplinary performance artist, and healing justice practitioner working inside African diaspora ritual practice, plus Black feminist theologies. Described as especially fascinating by Backstage magazine, featured by NPR for her curation of Black Arts Matter, and celebrated in Playbill as one of the 20 powerhouse women directors to watch. Witherspoon is a Creative Capital awardee, a Jerome Fellow, multi-year artist in residence at Here Arts Center and Brooklyn Arts Exchange, and was a 2050 Fellow at New York Theater Workshop. Her works in theater performance, Messiah, You Mine, The Dark Girl Chronicles, and Priestess of Twerk have been or will be featured by The Shed, Jack, La Mama, etc., Playwrights Realm, Brick, Here, National Black Theater, Movement Research, Dixon Place, Painted Bride, 651 Arts, and elsewhere. Witherspoon has been recognized by the Mellon Foundation, NYFA, the Wurlitzer Foundation, Lambda Literary, and Theater Bay Area, among others. She holds a PhD from Stanford University in Theater and Performance Studies, and selected publications include the Journal of Popular Culture, Imagined Theaters, and Iman Iman, Poets Writing in the Anzalduan Borderlands. She has been the multimedia writer in residence at Fordham, playwright in residence at University of Massachusetts Amherst, and held tenure-track professorships at ASU and FSU. Please join me in welcoming Nia.
Hi, everyone. Tokosa, I see you. Thank you so much for that introduction. It's kind of nice to hear your bio sometimes. I haven't heard it out loud in a while. Oh, yeah, I just edited that new one, so that was cute. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here with y'all. I'm so deeply inspired by all of the presentations. I guess that's the treat and the glory of going last. It's just getting to be filled up by all of you and your really expansive practices, so that I can just have all the fuel to move forward. Yeah, I am the kid that never chose a discipline or a genre. I kind of don't believe in them. And so, as you could hear from my bio and all of the people who ever said, you know, like, you have to choose one or you won't be successful, I say, haha, to that. So that's pretty, it's cool to remember that every day, even when I'm feeling like, you know, ungrounded or uncentered in a particular thing, that, you know, for me, I think a critical part of my practice is the expanse, and is the reaching, and is the kind of life of honoring creativity in all of its oceanic, constantly shifting forms, and as that and the ways that that comes through me, and allowing for that to be so. That feels like a decolonial act for me and for my own body, for my own practice. So thank you for being with me. Yes, I have to say, um, I'm really grateful to be here. I'm grateful to the ancestors for just being alive today, for all the incredible elemental gifts of this particular place, and its original peoples, but also its stewards. It's really just exceptional, to just be able to walk outside and see what I see here, to just be able to look up as I am now and to see the sea. And I've been feeling incredibly nourished. And so thank you to Sitka for having me. Thank you to Oregon for having me. This is only my second time here. So I have good feelings so far about Oregon because of these two very special experiences that I've had. I didn't realize that not everybody that I would be on panel with would be here artist-wise. And so for those of you that have left, I'm sorry that I didn't get to meet you. And for those of you that are still here, I hope to take a walk, even though I have been very much in solitude and am technically in a vow of silence right now in my life. And so speaking is precious and intentional when it does happen. I'll just start. I'm going to show you some videos because I make mostly time-based work, and because I prefer for you to experience my work that is live, and because I prefer for you to experience my work as opposed to hearing me talk about it. I'm in a little bit of a conflict always in these circumstances. Also, the works are big, they're large scale, they're about being inside of space together and healing and yeah, just like the liveness, all of that. So in these circumstances, it's hard, but also because of COVID, it's been really, really hard. In 2020, I hit a career milestone. I got Creative Capital, and ironically, you know, got it inside of a pandemic. And so like all the things that were like, all the things of like that I think, at least in my field, we talk about like, oh, that retreat, like when you get to that retreat, they're like, you know, it's, you know, in my culture, we say that's going to change your life up. Like that's a thing. Like that's really that's going to do it. You know, you're going to have these like meetings. We're going to set you up with these meetings. And then like, you know, you're going to be a household name, basically, you know, I'm trying to live. I'm trying to live as an artist. Right. It's very much, my practice is totally unsustainable. Right. I make large scale, super expensive works about Black women, femmes, and queer people, right? And that is a part of the practice. That's like, like the fact that they are pleasure practices, the fact that we are luxuriating inside of scale is a part of the method and a part of the theory. And so, you know, I was really looking forward to this chance and this opportunity to expand the space making and expand the reach of the works. Anyway, that all got canceled and Zoomified. But the plus of that is that I have this handy dandy video that I'm about to show you of my presentation at that time, where you'll get, you know, just an overview of some of my work, as well as kind of just a tone. I'm much further along in the project than I was then, but kind of a touching of the tones of the of Priestess of Twerk, a Black Femme Temple to Pleasure, before I kind of talk in more detail. And that's also what I'm working on here at Sitka. So give me one. 13.8 billion years ago, we exploded from a single point. We are still expanding from that initial impact. And as our universe continues to expand, our consciousness expands. Can we feel the ways we are being stretched and broken open to receive our next selves, our next world, our next manifestation? I'm Nia Witherspoon, a multidisciplinary conceptual artist with deep roots in Philly and currently based in Brooklyn. I'm a writer, theater and performance maker, composer, singer, and cultural worker. And my work is my prayer, testifying to the sanctity of all Black life inside an anti-Black world. I create immersive, multi-sensory experiences that amplify the critical voices of African diaspora ancestral legacies of healing, from diviners and tarot card readers to twerk mistresses and astrophysicists, all in the service of wholeness and evolution. I create apertures and portals that defamiliarize and slow capitalist time enough to confront, contextualize, respond to, and heal from state violence, particularly as it manifests against Black women, queer, and TGNC folks. My work also imagines Black futures and alternative worlds that, unlike this one, do not rest upon our destruction, but our joy and flourishing. To this end, my creative capital project, Priestess of Twerk, creates a space that centers the pleasure of and care for Black women and femmes, especially creatives, healers, and sex workers. Equally inspired by the goddess temples of ancient Egypt and the bad bitches of hip hop, Priestess of Twerk recreates a Black feminist monastic pleasure temple as a modular traveling performance installation, an immersive hybrid live and virtual experience that takes participants through a series of personally tailored rituals into a contemporary reimagining of Isis's journey to the underworld. This sonic and twerkalicious journey features auto and performance ethnographies from Black women and TGNC co-creators around our complicated sexual subjectivities, ending with a ritual release of respectability. The temple is inspired by my own personal experiences of sacred space in nightclubs, churches, temples, and spas, and will feel like a hallucinogenic journey inside one of Beyoncé's wildly decadent visual albums. Imagine this. Upon entering the sacred space, abundant with flowing waters, tropical flowers, and soft, earthy fabrics, participants will be greeted by twerk priestesses in erotic holy regalia. They will then be cleansed and outfitted before going for an individual divination, where they will receive their own tailored map for how they should move through the temple, based on the healing that they need. Participants will also be given a book of spells in the Black feminist monastic tradition to support them along the way. In addition to saunas, baths, and altars dedicated to different goddesses, the medicinal spaces participants may be prescribed include dream chamber, birth chamber, gender affirmation chamber, menses chamber, erotica chamber, and flora chamber. In this temple, there are also shrines dedicated to Black feminist patron saints, Octavia, both Tonys, Audrey, June, Belle, Alice. Each chamber contains its own ceremonies, liturgical renditions of Shaka Khan, durational twerk meditations to Audre Lorde, devotional pole dancing to Alice Coltrane, and don't get me started on the visual album. During the course of each run, the temple is open to Black women, femmes, and TGNC communities as a free spa and healing center, democratizing access to health and doing critical work to decolonize the wellness industry. The premiere of Priestess of Twerk will model, pilot, and coincide with the opening of House of Ori, a network of residency spaces that frees us from production timelines and allows our sustainable participation in world making. Our ultimate goal is to offer both spiritual home and physical refuge by collectively owning land in different diasporic nexus points where our communities can vision, rest, heal, grow, celebrate, and create, all while being nourished by African diaspora geospatial structures, cooking, and ways of knowing. We are commissioned by Here Art Center in New York for the premiere, and we are thrilled to be a finalist for the National Theater Project's touring program. But even if granted, we are still in need of a considerable amount of support to actualize this transformative multi-part vision. I'm gonna stop there because that was like for the funders in the room. Like here are the things we need. So that was the art part. Yeah, it's nice to sit inside that vision again. So yeah, I think what I'll do for the rest of my time is just share a couple of things with you that are not so speaking so broadly. One is you saw some photos and I think some video from our project called Chronicle X, which is part one of the Dark Girl Chronicles. This piece was a multimedia theater performance ritual that did I've been taken for many years with state violence against Black women in particular, and how little press that gets as compared to state violence against Black men. Not that we want press for it, right? But like, it's just that folks don't know a lot of the things that are happening. And so I just took three stories that really that moved me. The story of Diamond Reynolds, who was the fiance of Philando Castile, who was shot in 2016 in St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota, pulled over for a traffic light. He was murdered. Rachel Jontel, who was denigrated on the public stage during the Trayvon Martin trials, and was his best friend in the last phone call that he made. And Ilan Nettles, who's a trans woman who was murdered in Harlem at the intersection of 14, where there were 14 police cameras and several police stations. And so, giving honor to their lives and in really interstitial ways, really looking for exploring the interior landscapes that are possible that don't happen when our images are so flattened. Really rejecting trauma porn and trying to investigate another way of seeing Black women and Black femme bodies, seeing, hearing, feeling, sensing. And for that, and the way that I found that, and the way that we, the many of us that worked on the pieces, found that were through understanding a different relationship to futurity, a different relationship to technology, a different relationship to indigenous knowledge, in particular for the chronicles, really looking at Yoruba sacred systems and Bantu Congo sacred systems. So Chronicle X, now that I'm pulling back in, Chronicle X is a retelling of this one particular story. It's a Yoruba creation story about the three original beings that were created, and they were three bits of stardust, and their names were knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And these three bits of stardust kind of are created, and then they are sent out to go create more, and they don't know what to do. And so wisdom goes back to the creator, floats back, and says, you sent us out, but we don't know what to do. And in that moment, the creator swallows all three of them into their giant belly. And they're in there for millennia until eventually the creator, they hum and hum and hum and hum, and they make so much noise that eventually the creator explodes. And that's actually how the creation is said to happen. And so I do a mashup of this creation story. And according to Yoruba belief system, this area right here, the skull and the head is constantly creating and recreating itself. And so I imagine that this creation story is happening every time we experience a rebirth. And traumatic or not, this was a rebirth for Diamond Reynolds. It was a rebirth for Black culture because of the way in which, when she went Facebook Live, exposed thousands of people in real time to the reality, her individual documentation of the reality of the injustices that were happening. And she posited a really radical relationship with technology for Black women and femmes who are very high social media users, incidentally, and what this actually could be. There's a scholar, Alyssa Richardson, who calls this bearing witness while Black, this phenomenon. So anyway, all of those ideas kind of circulated inside of this piece. And I will actually just show you a very brief clip. After I said I don't like to talk about my work, there's just a lot of framing that it doesn't make sense without, actually. So I will show you this brief clip. This is from Wright before they get swallowed. Okay. And the whole thing is the whole thing is framed as a revival service. That's important to know. Also, COVID. So as you can see, everyone is masked and 6 feet apart. This is the height of COVID. Also, this big premiere of my life at the Shed was also, we had to change everything, basically. I'll just say that much. We had to change everything. But yes, we go on. So yes, they've just been created. So there you go.
And so they were born. Ogbon, Imo, and Aye. Wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. The whole. Born of the enormous efforts of Oludumare to go forth and carry out the mission of creation. Now, hold up now. When we say ho, what do we really mean? Do we mean hoe, the word that has been used to denigrate Black women for 500 motherfucking years? Not that hoe. No, no, no. Not the hoe of Don Imus's nappy-headed hoes. Not the hoe of fuck hoes get money. Now, first of all, let me say a word. We can get our hoe and our freak and our sex work on whenever we damn well please, because the hoe is holy. Second of all, we can wear sequined, sparkling, tight, short, sheer, strappy, teensy, weensy, eensy, sexy attire whenever we want. Because why? The hoe is holy, but not that hoe either. When we say hoe, we mean the composite of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. We mean the hoe of birth, the hoe of creation, the hoe of the Big Bang, the hoe of orgasmic bliss, the hoe of the feminine divine mystery. It's crazy, right? That the very word that contains our divinity has been taken and used against us? Well, not anymore. So not the hoe, but the say ho, say ho, 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 ho. That's what I'm talking about. Go forth, create. You got this. I believe. They tried and tried to no avail, but alas, could not create. Wisdom approached Oludumare. But wait, what were we supposed to do again?
So that I think that's probably the amount of time that I have. I was going to share with you a sound bath as well, a little excerpt, because I was having so many resonant moments, especially with you, Kane, where the sound bath is for the dream chamber from the temple, and it's got sounds from the center of the Milky Way and whale sounds and like chopped and screwed sounds that for me are sacred Black sounds, but we don't put them in sacred context. So like Mary J. Blige, but like that sounds like a whale sound, and all kinds of other goodies. My grandmother, Credo Mutwa, Zulu shaman, you know, like all kinds of stuff. But maybe I'll just leave that as a teaser. I hope that you follow my work. I'm at Nia Soli on Instagram. I'm trying really hard to be better about social media. It just doesn't come naturally to me, but it is the way of the world these days. So I hope to see you somewhere out there in the world. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Nia. Allison shares for putting such powerful words to the experience of being in residence and in relationship with nature and organ. Your definition of ecology is feminist and expansive, challenging and inclusive. Thank you for breaking your vow of silence and sharing your wisdom and work tonight with passion and intention. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. And we hope to see you again at our next Artist Talk.